Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for having me.
Now, I want to start by just asking you what qualifies you to be the next mayor of the city of South Bend?
Well, I believe that I did 20 years United States Army. I retired. So that's 20 years of leadership experience, trained by given to me by the United States government, right? I have a passion to lead. And I think in this time in South Bend's history, it's time for that bold leadership. So I feel like that makes me qualified.
You say it's time for bold leadership. What would you say is the most important issue facing the city?
Right now, I think the violence, the violent crimes that are happening, and the school corporation. I think if we lose our schools, we're going to lose the city. So somehow we have to make bold steps to assist the school corporation to be successful, as well as work with our police force to decrease the violence in the city.
So let's dig into those two topics a little bit. Of course, the mayor does not currently control the South Bend City Schools.
That is
so
true.
what is it that the mayor can do to help to attract more students to the school corporation and to strengthen those schools?
So the mayor doesn't have control over the South Bend School Corporation, but he has a strong influence, right? And with that influence, we have to encourage South Bend schools to follow a path that is beneficial for the city and beneficial for the schools. So one of those plans could be, and nothing is taken off the table, but maybe trying to invest in students within South Bend schools and this is just a broad way of looking at it. There are other cities that are practicing creating some type of investment account in those students so that when they graduate, they have this investment account that they can use towards college so that we're not sending our students from South Bend schools to college just to get debt. Those are certain types of programs that we could use here that I think would cause students to come back into the South Bend School Corporation.
Give that extra incentive.
An extra incentive, yes.
Now, you mentioned crime, especially violent crime.
Yes.
What do you think needs to change to bring those numbers down and make the city safer?
So I believe to help reduce crime, I believe is it's going to take a community effort, right? We can't just depend on our police department to solve a crime problem. However, we need to band together as a community to show that this is our city and show that we love our city and that we're not going to stand by while individuals put citizens in fear. So we need to have those bold steps as a community to assist our officers so that we can bring that crime rate down.
What is your position on the Citizens Review Board? Some citizens say they have fear of the police.
So I've had the pleasure of going to the Citizens Police Academy. So I've seen, it has opened my eyes to things that the police deals with, right? But I've also tried to walk a complaint. We had a citizen file a complaint. He was on video, it seems that he was struck by an officer. I walked that complaint down. I asked questions. It was already interviewed by the IA. It was passed off. And as I walked through that process, as frustrating as it was, I was stonewalled. Now, at that point, I asked, was there a second opinion that can be given? And I was told that it wasn't. There's no second opinions. The officers get to make the final decision. So, to go back to your question about the Citizens Review Board, for that particular situation, I believe a Citizen Review Board would have been ideal. So that we can get a second set of eyes to just make sure everybody is being transparent, right? I don't doubt that the officers did the right thing, but I do, as I spoke about that to the chief at the time, I explained to him that it makes no sense that if this officer, if we know about this complaint and then that officer does something else, we shouldn't have to hear about it after a mistake on the officer's part that he had X amount of complaints against him. I think we're doing a disservice to the officer and the community. So with that said, I'm in support of the community review, the Citizens Review Board, yes.
And also resources for the police, resources diverted to other kinds of programs, both. What do you think has to happen to bring that crime rate down?
So are you, not to put words in your mouth, are you asking, am I support of defunding the police? Or
Well, that's certainly one of the slogans, but the broader sense of whether we need really more officers on the street and more technology, or do we need more investment in certain kinds of social service programs, or is it really a false choice?
I believe it's the community's responsibility to, in the slogan, to defund the police, right? If the community does what it takes to solve the problems within the community, then we don't need police to do overtime, to do special units. We wouldn't need that if the community could manage things that's going on in their community, right? So I believe it takes a community effort to solve the issues. And if we're solving the issues as a community, I believe we don't have to pay officers so much overtime, so much for special activities, right? But if we don't do that, I believe we have to fund the police however necessary to make this a safer city.
Now, there has not been a Republican mayor
Right.
since the Democratic mayor of 1972.
Right.
The Democrats took the mayor's office and have held it since then.
Yes.
What do you think will make it different this time?
Lord Allen was the last Republican mayor, and I'm hoping I'm saying his name correct. Lord Allen, right. I believe that we're in a different time of South Bend's history, that we're ready to try something new. I believe that the Democrats as a whole has sold us on an idea that they are doing things better. And I think the citizens want and deserve just another opportunity to try something different, to see if we can make a difference.
So you say a lot of people seem to want something different, and if you do, then try different leadership.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in terms of other issues, one of the things that all three candidates for mayor seem to agree on is the fact that there should be more development across all South Bend neighborhoods. Do you feel like some neighborhoods have been neglected? And if so, what would you do to try to strengthen and support those neighborhoods?
So, I believe that South Bend as a city, not only has South Bend as a city practiced redlining, it was a nationwide issue. However, historically, we can pinpoint the implicit issues that we've done as far as redlining within these cities. I think to make amends for that wrongdoing, I believe that we need to invest, we need to figure out a way to invest in those red line districts across South Bend.
So when we talk about redlining, just for viewers who may not be familiar with that, you're talking about neighborhoods which were primarily African-American neighborhoods, and banks would not give mortgages and
Yes.
loans there, and so people really couldn't develop
Yes.
that wealth.
Yes.
So that sounds a little like what Councilman Henry Davis has talked about in terms of reparations, not writing checks, but reinvesting in those neighborhoods where we know there was harm. Is that fair to say?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So, reparations is a different terminology. And do I believe South Bend should recognize reparations? No, because the issues done to African Americans was a nationwide issue. I believe reparations is something that should come from the federal government, and that is an issue that I think as African Americans we need to take up with the federal government, because as the United States as a whole benefited in that. But as it comes to South Bend, the practice of redlining, we can really pinpoint the areas that was systematically de-invested in. So if we know that, I believe to make amends with those citizens, no matter what color they were, that was living in those areas, I believe we owe a fiduciary responsibility as a city to make amends for that. And I believe, for me, that is very different than reparations.
Yeah, and certainly people disagree about what that term means or what it looks like, but you want
Correct.
that targeted investment to redress a grievance, or
Yes.
not grievances, but harms.
Yes.
So in terms of crime, we've talked about, in terms of neighborhoods, what about in terms of affordable housing? What would you do? That's a big problem, as you know. Many people who would be able to afford a mortgage in the past, with inflation and with rising costs, just cannot do so anymore. So what would you do to promote affordable housing in the city?
Now, and this is very difficult. This is a difficult balancing act, right? When we say affordable housing, no one can put a number to affordable housing, right? So affordable housing is very different across the board. Do I believe we need more quality housing? Absolutely. We need to figure out a way to make more quality housing. The problem becomes when you make more quality housing, taxes go up, right? Because it doesn't cost the same. There's a tax increase that's going to occur. And if someone is on a set salary, set amount of money that they have coming in, then this may bump against that, which could really cause gentrification. Mm-hmm. We have to really come up with a solution that we can create quality housing and keep a neighborhood with individuals who really want to support that neighborhood. That is a very difficult way of approaching it. I don't have the answer today. However, I'm willing to work with every neighborhood and every individual to try to solve this issue and to try to bring resources in so that we can make this happen. But I don't believe we need to stay handcuffed to ways of the past. I think it's time to move towards the future.
So when you talk about quality housing, you're not necessarily talking about expensive housing. What do you mean by that term? Would it be for middle class, working class, all different brackets?
I think we need for all different brackets, but we need to reshape what we believe about housing, right? So I believe when we're talking different styles of housing, I am aware of styles of housing that accommodates two styles of family, right? You have the main house, and then you have, which is connected,
Like
probably a
duplex
one bedroom attached to it, right?
Okay.
So that if you have a family in here, and then you have a college student, they really have a one bedroom house attached to that. The reason that is good is because if you don't have that college student, now a family can Airbnb this out and create extra income to accommodate. This is not the solution. However, these are just ideas that we can bring to the table so that we can re-envision what South Bend can look like.
So it sounds like part of your leadership style would be gathering as many stakeholders as possible and listening to new ideas. Was
Yes.
that
Yes.
fair to say? Okay, now what about when developers do come to the city, but they don't deliver on their promises? Maybe we, as a city, pay for upgrades for sewers, curbing, we maybe give a tax abatement, and then the developer doesn't follow through. What should the city do to make sure that those promises really are fulfilled?
So I believe that we have to be very diligent about our follow-up. We need to hold these developers accountable, and we need a tier stepping method to where we don't give them all the money up front or all the access up front. We give them a portion. We see if they're staying on course, and you can get another portion, right? But if they don't do what they said they were going to do, we need the ability to have in the contract that they will refund the city and the taxpayers back all that money that was wasted if they don't hold to what they said they're going to do.
What about people who are on the other side? They're not a developer who's investing in building new properties, but they have no shelter at all. We do see this problem in the city and the county. There's been a big debate about the Motels for Now program,
Yes.
for example, of what to do with folks. What is your solution?
So I am not for the Motels for Now. I believe that homelessness is a serious issue here, and we need to have serious discussions about how do we move forward. That's going to take some hard conversations. However, when we specifically about the Motels for Now, the Motels for Now sits in an area where the property value for individuals who live there has went down due to the fact that this is here. Crime has picked up in those areas. And while I have a heart for the homeless, I have to have a heart for the taxpayers as well, right? This is where they're putting their money, this is where they're building their wealth. And for me to place the Motels for Now in that location and tell taxpayers that we're not considering their generational wealth that they're trying to build with their homes, I think is disingenuous of the city to back a program like so without coming with hard solutions on what do we need to do as a whole.
So those people have to go to some neighborhood. It sounds like you're saying that would be one of the many discussions that you're open to having and ready to have.
Correct.
All right, well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for now. So thank you so much for being here. Great to talk with you, Desmond of Church, and good luck.
Thank you so much.